deep in the south of Sweden. 13 nations have come together to build one of the biggest science projects in human history. It's a multi-billion-dollar mega lab that acts like a gigantic microscope. But it doesn't look like anything you would have used at school.
This one uses a particle accelerator to make nuclear reactions.
Here, scientists are going to be able to go deep inside the atomic structure of materials.
So, kind of got a few questions at this stage. What exactly is it? Why are so many countries involved? And how the hell does it actually work? It's in here that protons are going to be travelling along at 96% the speed of light.
Correct. This is going to help to develop better materials for our energy solutions of tomorrow, better medications, smarter pharmaceuticals.
It's not every day that you get to build a spallation source.
So behind me is one of the most incredible sites we've honestly ever visited at the B1M. And in case you haven't gathered it yet, this video is going to be a little bit more sciencey than the ones we normally do. With that in mind, we thought it'd be a good idea to give you a recap of some fundamental chemistry. Trust me, it will be worth it.
As you probably already know, absolutely everything around us, all matter in the universe, is made up of these tiny little things called atoms. And those are formed of even smaller particles called protons, neutrons, and electrons. How many of these are contained within the nucleus of an atom depends on the elements.
Now, when we say small, we mean very
small.
The radius of a neutron or proton is around 1 femtometer or 1 quadrillionth of a meter. Now, don't worry, because I can't really visualize that either. So, to help you, imagine this. If we took an atom and blew it up to the size of a stadium, then the nucleus of that atom would be about the size of this coin. And the protons and neutrons would be the size of the letters that are on it.
What's interesting about neutrons in particular is they can penetrate other atoms, which means they can be used to study a type of matter and how it's structured at a subatomic level, like a tiny probe. It could be materials that we've been using for years but want to know more about, substances that are relatively new to us, or stuff we're only just discovering. But you can't just conjure these neutrons out of thin air because they can only be found inside a nucleus. But there is a clever way to get them. First, you need another subatomic particle, a proton, which is fired at a special target. Once this happens, it breaks away pieces of the target atom, similar to what happens in a nuclear fission reactor, except it doesn't fully split the atom or generate a chain reaction like a power plant does. Instead, neutrons are ejected, which can be used for a range of experiments. They cover all kinds of industries, from new sources of energy to advancements in healthcare that could save lives. More on that later.
So it's not a reactor-based process, but it's more like hitting a piece of concrete with a sledgehammer and little bits and pieces fly out. And that's sort of what we're doing to the nucleus to get the neutrons out.
It's called spallation, and as you can imagine, it's not the easiest thing in the world to figure out.
But how do you go about achieving that? Well, this massive building I'm in is part of the European Spallation Source.
You'll find it just outside the city of Lund, less than 20 miles from Malmö and the border with Denmark. It's the most advanced facility of its kind anywhere in the world, or at least it will be when it's finished. I'm now about to enter the place where that whole process begins, the starting point for the spallation. It's a tunnel, but inside the tunnel is something remarkable.
So Cyprian, what are we heading into now? Where are we?
We are heading into the accelerator tunnel. In a second, you will see the accelerator itself in all its beauty.
Wow. Look at this. Can I touch it?
You can touch it, yes.
Wow, look at that. It's proper engineering right there.
So the proton beam travels in this vacuum tube towards the beam target. And then, of course, the start of the accelerator is at the other end, at the ion source.
This is where the beams of protons are generated. At 5 megawatts, they'll be over twice as powerful as what other facilities of this kind can make.
And at all these kind of intervals along the tube, there are these installations. What are these doing?
What we have here In this section, it's what we call a linear quorum unit. It's basically some magnets. These magnets are helping us keeping the beam focused inside the beam pipe.
Even if you're not a massive science nerd, there's a strong chance you'll have heard of particle accelerators. The most famous example can be seen over at CERN in Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider. That one is used to force particles together and create new ones while studying the energy and forces of those collisions. It's also arranged in a ring instead of a line.
When this is up and running, people can't be in this tunnel.
Nobody can be in the tunnel.
Because of the radiation.
Correct. We have safety systems that ensure that nobody is in the tunnel while we run.
How long did this all take to install?
We started the installation of the accelerator itself in 2017. Built a little bit at a time, we commissioned a little bit, we installed a bit more. Here we are at 2025 when we are about to wrap up. So yeah, you're looking at quite a few years of effort.
It's interesting to hear you speak because you can really tell that it's people that have made it happen. It's the right people collaborating in the right way that's made this reality, right?
Absolutely.
Now, when the head of Accelerator at the European Spallation Source says it's very complicated, you know it's time to lock in. And honestly, I've never been more grateful to partner with Brilliant than I was in that very moment. I've been working with them for more than 2.5 years now, and it's because our goals are genuinely aligned. Their course on scientific thinking is a really good example of this. Instead of rooting science in a classroom or a textbook, it helps you see the science we use every day, training your brain to become more analytical over time. And it does that with over 500 exercises and problems for you to sink your teeth into just in this course alone. So it's not theoretical, it's actual hands-on learning. Since you're watching this video, you're probably pretty interested in science. But Brilliant has plenty of other courses to keep you engaged, whether that's in mathematics, data analysis, programming, or even AI. To learn for free on Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/the B1M, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description. They've also given our viewers 20% off an annual premium subscription, giving you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. Now, let's get back to that multi-billion-dollar mega lab. At the other end of the accelerator is what looks like a giant stadium or arena. But there's no sport happening here. Instead, it's used for a very different purpose.
So once those protons have made it through the tunnel, they'll reach this, which is the target. It's a huge stainless steel disc in there, and it weighs almost 5 tons because it's formed of these blocks of tungsten, which is a heavy metal element with an unusually high number of neutrons.
Today, the wheel's being covered up and surrounded by shielding, so you can't actually see it, but you can get pretty close.
Oh wow.
Welcome to the connection cell.
So this is the heart of ESS, this is where the magic happens.
This is where the magic happens.
This room sits directly on top of the target and acts as the central point for the whole system.
Wow, this place is incredible.
This is where we have the heart of the target. Behind this area is the drive unit for the target wheel.
This wheel has 36 radial segments and has to spin at a very precise speed, 23.3 revolutions per minute. When those protons come in, they strike the tungsten in the target wheel, causing lots of lovely neutrons to be released, which are then sent to another part of this facility. During every rotation, a single proton beam must hit each individual segment for the system to work properly.
So you have the helium cooling system coming in. That is to cool the target wheel down.
Right.
So we have 2.8 kilo per second helium approximately coming.
So you might be wondering why the target, being relatively small, has such an insane amount of engineering around it. I'm very conscious, as I talk to you right now, there's 500 tons worth of lid above my head. Well, you remember earlier on that I said this process generates a nuclear reaction. You haven't got to be a scientist to know that that creates radiation.
Target wheel itself is not so big, but we need a lot of shielding to protect personnel from ionizing radiation.
And when you're running, this area is off limits?
This area is definitely off limits, yes.
But with construction work still ongoing, occasionally the team has to lift a piece of the shield out to work on what's underneath.
So what's happening behind me is one heck of a bit of weightlifting. This here is just one of the components that makes up the lid of the target. 80 tons. Extraordinary. The pressure through this system, through this massive frame right now, is immense.
You can see why, during the main construction, this building that houses the target became the most challenging part of the entire project. It's not just because it's huge and heavy, which is why over 6,000 foundation piles were buried into the bedrock for this part of the site. That was a necessary step to avoid any unwanted movement or subsidence on the main structure. No, it actually comes down to what's inside. Surrounding the wheel is a giant 8-metre high, 6,000-ton chamber called the monolith. The inner layer of this shielding system is made up of 32 blocks of stainless steel, which took a lot more than a simple Allen key to put together.
Instead, they were all lifted into place using this massive crane system that's built into the ceiling.
And it had to be done with immaculate precision. Those blocks had to be placed with a tolerance of just 0.75 millimeters, leaving a hole just about big enough for the wheel to be dropped in later on. Sitting right next to the monolith is another area that had to be constructed with special care.
So I'm currently walking in a space where human beings simply won't be able to walk once this place is operational. This is the active cell. It's a chamber formed of incredibly thick walls.
It's where radioactive components that have been removed from the system are brought in, processed and stored. There's more heavy reinforcement here than anywhere else on the site.
So it comes down through these huge holes you can see above me in the ceiling. It's dropped into these 18-metre deep chambers beneath my feet. These are huge lids that I'm currently standing on. Obviously human beings can't touch it and manipulate it. So they've developed this incredible robotic system which basically mimics human arms. This is operated from a control room where an operator can see and move and split apart the waste so it can be broken down into smaller pieces and then taken away off site. It's remarkable to see this. It's like looking at the future before my eyes.
To give added protection against what's inside, this part of the building was constructed using extra strong concrete. Iron ore was added into the mix, which made it 60% heavier than normal.
The ESS organisation is a collaboration of more than a dozen European countries, which is why so many nations are able to run experiments here.
Together, they decided in 2009 to build this world-leading facility close to a place where a lot of smart people can already be found. One of Europe's top scientific universities is located right here in Lund.
By working together to build this world-leading facility, what would be too big, expensive and complicated for one country to try and do on its own actually becomes possible.
It's allowed them to spread the costs and the manpower. The overall budget is around 3 billion euros, which is roughly 3.5 billion US dollars. Almost half of that funding is coming from the host nations of Sweden and Denmark. The rest is provided by the other member states. They're contributing in other ways too, through what's called an in-kind model. That means they aren't just bringing cash. These countries are supplying their own knowledge, personnel and technical components. In fact, most of the equipment and services are being delivered in this way. Those 13 countries have provided 40 in-kind partners overall, and there are more than 100 institutions involved.
It's very difficult for a single nation to bring together all the technology, the depth of knowledge, the scientific background that you need, so you can pick and choose in the international collaboration the capabilities of each country to enable the facility to be produced in the most efficient and cost-effective way possible.
So now we know how neutrons are created. What happens to them once they've been scattered out? Where do they go and why?
First of all, they pass through a moderator reflector system which uses hydrogen and water to cool the neutrons and slow them down. Because while they might be travelling at only 10% the speed of light instead of 96% as they leave the target, that's still very, very fast.
Next, they come here to one of 15 scientific instruments that are being built at ESS across 3 massive halls.
They sit at the end of beam lines radiating outwards from the target. Their job is to capture a specific type of data from the neutrons when they're directed at a sample in sight.
So we're now inside the DREAM instrument.
This is extraordinary, look at this.
We'll be getting the neutron beam from over here. It'll come in to the sample, which is inside this very special vacuum chamber we have. What happens is that the neutrons, they scatter off the sample. It could be a new superconducting material, for instance. off, and then we want to detect them coming out. You measure the beam after scattering, and then you do a lot of number crunching, a lot of computational analysis. You compare to everything you know about your sample, and then you can deduce what does this scattering pattern tell us about the atomic and molecular nature of your sample.
To an extent that's never been done before because of the nature of this facility.
Definitely.
The instruments are all different, used by separate organisations, and they each have weird names. This one's called Odin, this one's known as Magic, this one is called Dream, while this one is Beer.
Our instruments, most of them have been created by different researcher teams all around Europe, and they've all come up with their own names. And we've just taken these names and adopted them into the project, which is why they look sometimes a little bit imaginative.
Dream is very cool, might be my favourite actually.
Yeah, they like to be called the Dream Team.
Nice.
There's also another task that's got to be completed before researchers can do any meaningful work with the data. All the information obtained from those neutrons is first sent off to a data management and scientific computing centre in a whole other country, just outside Copenhagen in Denmark. Then, once it's processed, the data is ready for scientists to conduct their experiments.
When it's fully up to speed, around 3,000 scientists from all across Europe are going to use this facility every year to conduct all kinds of experiments.
For example, let's say a company wants to test a material it's developing that's going to be subjected to extreme forces. Normally, the R&D process would require a great deal of trial and error. But if they had neutrons, they could have them penetrate deep into the material's molecular structure early on. That company could then get valuable insights into how it perform under those conditions much sooner in the process. Neutrons also have the potential to make better superconducting magnets for MRI scanners, which could lead to improved cancer diagnosis. They could even be used to help create the processors needed for the quantum computers of the future. And because neutrons are non-destructive, they won't damage the samples or affect them in any way, which is important when the sample in question is extremely fragile. ESS might be one of the most promising big science projects in the world right now, but it's not going to be the only neutron research centre on the planet. The ISIS neutron source in the UK has been operating since the mid-1980s and has a linear accelerator too, but far less powerful than the one in Sweden. There's also the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee. It was here that neutrons were used to examine hair samples from former US President Zachary Taylor, proving that he wasn't killed with arsenic way back in 1850, as everyone thought he had been at the time. Yes, you can add solving murder mysteries from more than a century ago to the list of benefits.
There are many very good neutron sources around the world, but every time you build something new, you push the technology forward. Once we're up and running at full speed, we're going to have higher intensity neutron beams, higher brilliance neutron beams than anywhere else.
The ESS neutron source will be much brighter or more intense than what already exists, capable of making 10 quintillion of these little particles every second.
What's happening in here?
So this is the Odin instrument. This is an imaging instrument. You can look at engineering materials if you want to get through metals and things, but you can also look at geological materials if you want to go deep into a mineral sample. One example is that they found a petrified dinosaur egg. They found it in the Gobi Desert, which used to be a jungle 100 million years ago. There was a huge breeding ground for dinosaurs. You want to study it, you don't want to damage it, and it was taken to a neutron source. And what they saw inside this egg, using a neutron imaging machine such as this one, was this tiny little baby dinosaur, not yet hatched.
Wow. So that's an example of being able to see further than mankind's ever seen before, right? Being able to see inside materials and understand them better, yes, so we can engineer better in the future. Mm-hmm. Extraordinary.
It's genuinely pretty humbling to think this place could play a role in the future of our planet. But if you were to pass by and didn't know anything about it, you probably wouldn't give it a second look. Apart from that distinctive roof, which we'll talk about in a moment, there's nothing here to really give away that this site is home to a world-changing megalab, at least from the ground. Which is entirely the point. It was designed to have as little visual impact as possible on the surroundings here. You can see wild vegetation growing everywhere, and there's meadows and grasslands. There are no big ugly fences like you see at other big science facilities.
Everywhere you look in this project, there's astonishing complexity. The systems around me here are used to power the accelerator, and incredibly, the heat from these systems is being harnessed and used to heat part of the city of Lund.
Around 20,000 people are set to be kept warm in this way once ESS is fully operational.
Loads of effort has been put into making sure the ESS blends in, and when you visit here, it really does feel like part of the surrounding farmland. But one part of it does stand out. We're talking about the pretty noticeable structure on top of the target building.
Engineering firm Ulrika Hammarlund was given the task of designing a strong but lightweight roof structure that could withstand any extreme weather that might occur. After all, we're in a part of Sweden where temperatures can get pretty cold in the winter months. So they came up with this semi-porous cladding system that reduces the effect of environmental loads. In other words, wind and snow is allowed to pass through the facade without affecting the roof's integrity. It even cantilevers out from the building by 35 metres, making it easy to see where it gets its nickname from: the ESS Sombrero. So when's it all due to be complete? Well, the ESS is due to finish construction and have its first neutrons ready for researchers by 2027. The group plans to have protons striking the target a year before that, which looks promising because the system has already hit a major milestone on the way towards this. In May 2025, the team successfully achieved what's called beam on dump. This involved sending protons most of the way down the tunnel to prove the accelerator works. What they now need to do is spend some time fine-tuning the proton beam and gradually increasing the power up to the required level. If that all goes to plan, they'll then be able to initiate beam on target, which is basically the big moment where they'll actually make neutrons.
So we anticipate, as of today, that on the 10th of March 2026, but you can't hold me to that date, is when we project we'll make neutrons on the target for the first time. After that, we'll have an intense period of about a year and a half to make the first instruments work and get them ready for the scientists who want to come here and start doing experiments.
What do you hope the impact of this will be on the world?
If you look a little bit back at how things went over the last 50, 100 years, the technology we have today, the mobile phones we're using, are possible because of the existence of this research infrastructure, these tools.
ESS is an incredible example of what the construction industry can achieve and what's possible when different countries come together to work on something for the greater good.
I don't know what they will discover, but what I can tell you is we will have incredible science coming out that in the end will make it into products that might affect our day-to-day life. So I'm hoping that the tool we're bringing will make the world a better place, and I'm confident that it will.
What's happening here really will change the world as we know it. And when you're walking through a place like this, you really do feel like future chapters of history are being written. I cannot wait to see what comes out of these walls in the years to come. The discoveries that are made here could change all of our lives forever. Don't forget you can learn for free on Brilliant by heading over to brilliant.org/the B1M, clicking the QR code on screen, or heading down there to the link in the description. They're also giving you guys 20% off an annual premium subscription, which gives you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M. I've dropped a coin. I'm really sorry.
Oh, it's 10 crowns as well.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah.
My contribution to this science project is dropping litter.
It's a hard place to vacuum.
So sorry.
No problem.